Picture this, you're running late for a flight. You sprint to the airport, check in on your phone, and rush to security. But instead of the usual 20-minute wait, you see a line that looks like Black Friday shopping, except it's not moving. Welcome to the new reality at American airports, where a partial government shutdown is creating the kind of delays that would make a rush-hour traffic jam look speedy. Here's what's happening. On February 14th, parts of the federal government shut down. Think of it like a massive company where the owners can't agree on the budget, so they stop paying employees in certain departments. One of those departments, the Transportation Security Administration, the folks who run airport security checkpoints. Now, TSA agents are what we call essential workers during a shutdown. That means they're legally required to show up to work even though they're not getting paid. It's like telling someone they have to come to their job for free while their bills keep piling up at home. Unsurprisingly, thousands of these workers are saying, thanks, but no thanks, and calling in sick instead. The numbers tell the story. More than 3,400 TSA agents called out of work this past Sunday alone. At New Orleans Airport, over 40% of security staff didn't show up. At Atlanta's massive Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, one of the busiest in the world, more than 40% called in absent. Houston, Baltimore, and other major hubs are seeing similar patterns. What does this mean for travelers? Imagine trying to run a restaurant with half your kitchen staff missing. You can still serve food, but everything takes twice as long. Customers get frustrated, and the whole system starts breaking down. That's exactly what's happening at airports. Wait times are stretching to 3 or 4 hours. Some passengers are literally sleeping in terminals to avoid missing their flights. The ripple effects are enormous. Airlines are telling passengers to arrive 3 to 4 hours early, turning a quick domestic trip into an all-day ordeal. Business travelers are missing meetings. Families are missing connections. The economic cost of thousands of people sitting in airport lines instead of being productive is staggering. So the federal government has deployed what you might call the backup squad. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, ICE agents, are now working at 14 major airports, including New York, Atlanta, and Houston. Think of them as substitute teachers stepping into a classroom when the regular teacher is out sick. But here's where it gets interesting. ICE agents normally handle immigration enforcement, often wearing masks to protect their identities during arrests. At airports, President Trump specifically asked them to remove those masks. His reasoning? He thought masked federal agents didn't look appropriate at airports where nervous travelers are already on edge. It's a small detail that reveals how improvised this whole situation is. These ICE agents aren't screening passengers or checking bags. They're doing crowd control, basically helping manage those massive lines and keeping frustrated travelers organized. It's like having mall security help direct shoppers during a crazy sale, except the stakes are much higher because we're talking about aviation security. Now, why should you care about this even if you're not flying anywhere? First, this is a preview of what happens when essential government functions break down. Airport security isn't optional in the modern world. We built this system after September 11th to keep air travel safe, and when it starts failing, it affects everyone, from business confidence to tourism to cargo shipments. Second, this situation reveals something important about how our economy works. We have thousands of federal employees who are considered so essential that they must work without pay, but apparently not essential enough to get paid on time. That's a contradiction that creates exactly the kind of crisis we're seeing now. Third, the longer this goes on, the worse it gets. TSA agents aren't just missing a single paycheck. They're facing weeks without income while their rent, car payments, and grocery bills keep coming. Every day the shutdown continues, more agents will likely decide they can't afford to work for free, making the airport situation even worse. What's the bigger picture here? This airport crisis is a symptom of a larger political standoff over government funding. But unlike typical Washington gridlock that happens behind closed doors, this one is playing out in very public, very tangible ways. When your flight is delayed 4 hours because there aren't enough security agents, the shutdown stops being abstract political theater and becomes a real disruption to your life. The deployment of ICE agents is also politically loaded. ICE has become controversial due to its role in immigration enforcement under the Trump administration. Using these agents to fill gaps in airport security creates an unusual situation where immigration enforcement officers are now visible at airports in a non-immigration capacity. For some travelers, especially immigrants or people of color, seeing ICE agents at airports, even if they're just doing crowd control, can be genuinely frightening. Airport industry leaders are sounding alarm bells. Over 100 airport executives sent a letter to Congress this week saying the situation is creating significant, growing, and potentially long-lasting operational disruptions. They're not just talking about inconvenience, they're worried about the broader economic impact and long-term damage to the aviation system. Think about what airports represent in our economy. They're not just places where people catch flights. They're economic engines that support millions of jobs, enable international business, connect families, and facilitate tourism. When airports start breaking down, it sends ripples through the entire economy. Here's what nobody is explaining clearly. This crisis illustrates a fundamental problem with how we fund essential services. Airport security is something we all depend on, but it's vulnerable to political fights that have nothing to do with aviation safety. It's like having the fire department's budget tied to whether city council can agree on park funding, completely unrelated issues that create real danger when they get tangled together. The immediate fix is obvious, and the government shutdown so TSA agents can get paid and return to work. But the deeper question is whether critical infrastructure like airport security should be subject to these kinds of political disruptions in the first place. So, what's your takeaway from all this? Next time you hear about a government shutdown, remember that it's not just abstract political drama. Real people stop getting paid for essential work that keeps our daily lives functioning, and when those people, understandably, decide they can't work for free, the systems we all depend on start falling apart in very concrete ways. Whether you're planning to fly soon or not, this airport crisis is a reminder that our interconnected world depends on thousands of people showing up to jobs that most of us never think about. When political dysfunction prevents those people from getting paid, we all feel the consequences. 1 4-hour security line at a time. That's today's news, plainly stated. The government shutdown is turning airports into chaos. ICE agents are filling in as crowd control, and we're all learning what happens when essential workers can't afford to work. It's a mess that affects everyone, even if you never set foot in an airport.